Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Paul Tindall, president of Sandler Training in Oakville, Burlington, and Toronto. Joining me today is David Nirko, and we are going to be talking about the Sales Leaders Playbook. Ideas for entrepreneurs, small, medium-sized business owners who want to grow at a greater rate. We're interviewing people that have had some success at doing that, some of the challenges that they've experienced in that road to success. And as I mentioned, joining me today is David Nirko. And David, why don't you sort of introduce yourself? What's your background? Take us back to the beginning. How did you get started? And what was your first real sale?
My name is David Nirko. I am president and general manager of Spirax, Sarco, Canada. We're a national organization that involved in steam process and steam improvement and steam products.
Mm-hmm.
Part of a global organization of Spirax Group, and we are nationally covering Canada. When I started, my background is actually not in sales at all. My background is in finance. I graduated with administration degree and accounting. And my career evolved in the finance section on the organization. I was in the controllership side of things for many, many years until I got an opportunity to advance myself and to explore myself in various different facets of the business within Spirax Sarco Canada,
Right.
where I occupied operational roles, health and safety roles, to an extension HR roles, because it's a medium-sized business. So in many cases, you need to wear different hats as you go around. And as you conduct yourself and making the best decisions possible, given the shortcomings of headcount or possibility of people leaving or just being thrown into different deep ends of the business needs that are coming my way.
Okay.
And that essentially allowed me to explore myself in servicing and operations and everything exceptionally but sales.
You would be surprised how many people come from an accounting background, where most people think, accountants, they're going to be very introverted and they're going to be very data oriented and they're not going to be good in sales. I'm here to tell you that's a fallacy. Some of the best salespeople in the world in a lot of different organizations come from a very strong finance background.
Well, that's appeasing. Thank you, Paul. That's really appreciated, because it does. Because I do believe that it's not a common breed in Spirax world, quote unquote, but it is. I've seen quite a few, as you said, people switching from accounting to HR to sales and whatnot. Because in the end of the day, it's about personal relationship. It's about how you want to evolve as a human being and as a professional. So, to your point, you're absolutely right. And I was tasked after many years of servicing different and serving in different roles.
Yes.
I was in task of leading the organization from a general management standpoint, where encompassing pretty much all of different facets of the business.
Okay.
And I truly and utterly enjoyed my sales journey, conversations, and involvement, and that really, I would say, in the last several years since I occupied this current position that I have, I've learned a lot. I learned a lot, and I learned in terms of what is important in sales, which I would say correlates to other facets of the business in many ways. It's not unique to sales. So there's a lot of common traits that are not unique to sales alone, like proper rapport, building proper rapport, consistency of delivery of communication, being open, being transparent. I think clarity and confidence is one of the key aspects that I would say I'm honing in terms of my approach. Support, a lot of the times, especially in Canada, because Canada is, unlike many countries around the globe, which have a different geographical area to cover. In Canada, especially if you go west of Ontario, east of Ontario, your heat map in terms of your population coverage is become rapidly different than in Ontario and Quebec. And even in Ontario and Quebec, if you go outside of Montreal greater area, if you go outside of Toronto greater area, it becomes sparsely populated. Therefore, your coverage is really something very, very critical. that coverage can be only done by trust factor that you have a good support cast around you. Because as a sales, especially when you're by yourself on the road, you need to know that we got your back from internal operation standpoint, and that is so critical as both the business and the human factor, both professionally and personally,
Right.
because it's a mental draw that really takes a toll on you as a professional.
Sure it does. And how big is the sales team in Canada now?
We have right now about 20 sales individuals. We have about 5 to 7 internal sales individuals who are supporting both customers that are phoning in, as well as having servicing smaller customers all across Canada as well.
Okay.
Or smaller customers to us, not necessarily small organizations.
So it's a real sales-driven organization.
Well, you know what, Paul? I think it's a good
and service, sales and service, obviously.
Absolutely, but I would say that I would divide the organization. I think there is the spearheading is the sales force, and the rest are supporting that sales force. We're supporting it, as you said vividly, in terms of servicing the product. We're supported by providing the expertise and the knowledge and the capability to the sales force, as well as delivering the actual products and the solutions when the sales come in.
So we're actively involved in. So do the sales team report to you, or do they report to a couple layers below you?
We have regional managers, sales managers that are reporting to me.
And the salespeople report to them.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, up to now, what has growth meant to you in terms of revenue, market share, et cetera? I mean, obviously, you don't want to disclose confidential information, but basically, what has that meant? And when you look at your business today, what does growth mean to you?
I think the growth is done through several different approaches. Number one is looking in terms of where we are in Canada, and I would say that a big portion of our growth and a big honing in terms of as a country is that our infrastructurally, and I mean in institutions and healthcare, we do need to rebuild our capabilities all throughout Canada, not just province-wise. And that's where we come in. We help out different hospitals, different organizations to really be impactful in that area. That's one of the strategies that I have. The other one is the geographical coverage and partnering with key and critical partners all across Canada. As I mentioned, geographically speaking, it's a huge country to cover, and we cannot be everywhere. We cannot be able to service the customer in a meaningful way everywhere. So that's why I believe that one of the key facets of our growth is capability of partnering with key partners, be it in service, be it in sales, be it in resellers, be it whichever channel we go with. It's a key and critical, and that's part of that rapport building, and that's part of that human interaction criticality.
So you're selling both to end users and through some form of distribution channel. So you're acting as your sales team are acting as channel managers, selling through channel partners, as well as selling to direct users. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yes.
And what percentage of your business is through channel partners?
I would say about 20 to 25%, depending on the year.
Okay. So most of the business comes from dealing with direct to selling to end users. So what's your vision for sort of the next 3 to 5 years with respect to sales?
The biggest aspect for us is that we're going through a generational shift. As baby boomers are retiring, so we have more and more individuals that are coming in new to the business. So one of the key and critical areas for me is to get the technical know-how of my sales force up and running in the most meaningful way. And not just quicker, but it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality. So in those two aspects is very, very critical for us. That will be part of the growth success, is that to get the geographical coverage, it's not only the geographical coverage that I'm looking for, I'm also looking for the right individuals to be able to be technical know-how to be able to service the customer. Because when we walk into various different end users, we need to be adding value. And today's world with more digitalization, we need to add value more than ever before.
And so what are some of the biggest challenges that you have with the sales team? So some people would say, well, they're, as I mentioned earlier, they're not proactively prospecting enough, or they are, but they're spending too much time putting together quotes and presentations and proposals that don't close. Other people, it's they're not, they're selling more on price rather than value, and they're getting beaten up, and that affects margins. Those are some of the common challenges that sales teams deal with. You may not be dealing with any of that. What are some of the challenges that you are dealing with your sales team?
I would definitely say that there is a bits of pieces of truth on everything that you just said. There is definitely of that comfort zone where we would sell more on price than instead of value. There is always that comfort zone in terms of saying I don't want to be using the CRM because it's I get used to my way of doing things. That is exactly what you said is something that I would say not immune by any shape, by any stretch of imagination. Excuse me. The biggest challenge that I believe that we have as an organization, I would say, geographically speaking, is the coverage and the trust factor that the sales engineer that my sales force is sales engineers,
right?
Primarily, yeah. Their job is to deliver value add solutions to the customer.
Right.
That can be done only through several different channels. One is the technical know-how, so that's something that we're working on. That's one of the biggest challenge. The challenge is also in terms of coverage and support from within. And that is something that we're going through right now, going how many external sales force versus internal sales force support we should be having. And the more technical we walk into, the more support cast inside we need to have. Because ultimately, in the end of the day, what in a perfect world, I would love for my sales force to be in front of the customer and as much as they possibly can, given our geographical shortcomings in terms of driving and weather and so on. That being said, for that to happen, the support that has to happen within the organization to enable them to become more meaningful in front of the customer is the key and critical area. So in both facets, my challenge is to technical involvement of the sales force and the support cast at the same time that will enable them to be in front of the customer as much as we possibly. So that is something that is in both ways would say the key and critical. If you ask me in terms of prospecting, I think the prospecting aspect that I would say today is something that is easier than it was prior, just because we're selling less on price, more on value. And I think the key and critical aspect for me is to re-engage with the customers that we served previously. And that to me is part of the prospecting, is re-engage with the customers that we haven't touched for the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years and re-engaging with them. That is something that I would say you don't have to have a new list every single time of new customers. You don't have to. You can just literally go, what were my sales in 2010, 15 years ago, and go and see which customers I'm no longer talking to, and let's revisit them. And that is something that I believe that part of my journey as in terms of where I want to go is I want to not just go in deeper and evolve within my top customers, my quote unquote customers, but also re-engage, reinvigorate the customers that we no longer talk to. I would like to bring them back. I would like to re-engage with them. And that to me is by far the most meaningful prospect aspect that I can see currently.
And your people are doing that, correct? To the extent that you want them to?
To the extent that not to the extent that I want to this point, but again, we have as I mentioned before, we are going through a generational shift. So not everything that you wish for is I'm able to gather, because today I have my shortcomings and I have quite a few individuals within a sales force that are quite new. So for them to be meaningfully adding value, they're not there yet, to say so many words.
When you go to hire somebody that's that's new, that's going to be a new salesperson, how do, aside from interviews, aside from checking resumes and their interviews, etc., and their possibly references from other places they work, is there some method of objectively assessing hidden weaknesses, skill sets, etc.? How do you go about doing that now?
Well, one of the things that we introduced in the last 18 months or so, or maybe even less, is a technical interview aspect.
Okay.
And that is something more to do with our technical know-how And what we are checking is not to say, okay, we need to get an individual at a certain level. No, our keen critical is that whatever you as an individual put on your resume, we want to make sure that that actually is you can actually back it up.
Right.
And that is something that is critical for us. So we do have that technical interview. We believe there is a certain level of expertise you should have as an engineer, as a graduate from engineering school.
Yep.
And we check for that.
Right.
And when we start doing that, our capability as an organization in terms of hiring has increased quite substantially.
Getting the right people.
It's not just the right person; it's also technical know-how. Because it's right person could be from a sales standpoint, but what we don't want to do is to get somebody in who's going to get discouraged because they do not have the technical know-how to be adding value to the customer. When that person will be discouraged, will find it hard to penetrate the market, or find hard to prospect, or to find new ways of selling. And that is something that we want to be not, and as I said, right, geographically speaking, it's a huge country to cover. So what you don't want to do is you want to send an individual on their way without the technical expertise that they should have.
Fair enough. Before you hire people, how, like one of the common things that sales leaders see when they're hiring people, or when people have been hired, is they discover kind of post hoc facto, they discover after the fact that either the person really doesn't have a high level of motivation to drive, to be effective in that role. That's usually not the issue. Occasionally it is. Or they're dealing with different forms of anxiety that causes them to, how do I say this, avoid doing the type of behavior that they should be doing, or in some cases not doing it at all. How do you assess for that before you're hiring someone? Basically, these are, I guess, hidden weaknesses. You probably have some form of process where you uncover this, correct?
If I tell you yes, it will be a little bit of a mislead, because we're not perfect by any stretch of imagination.
Oh, no one is. No one is.
But one of the things that we try to do is we try to have a communal approach to hiring. So what I mean by that is that we found that there is, obviously through trial and error, we found that there is the best pathway for us to assess an individual. Okay. And that's why we have several levels of interviews. It's not sitting with one individual. As I mentioned before, it's the hiring manager, is the HR individual, it's the HR business partner that we have, and then we have the technical know-how and the technical interview. On the fourth level, depending on which level you're falling in the organization, yeah, I will be involved or not. So it depends. But regardless, at least 3 interviews will be conducted.
Okay.
And that's something that gives us a better understanding. And we're not perfect. Again, what we're trying to avoid is to have a sole decision making, because you can be influenced by your emotional being that day. You can be influenced by that individual because you are seeing somebody who you like or you don't. And what you're trying to avoid that one narrow point of view or that one narrow vision. So what you're trying to do is expand that so that it's in a meaningful way. So that's something that really, I'd say, improved our batting average in terms of hiring process than ever before. So both the level of interviews that I just mentioned, as well as the technical interview that plays a huge part as part of our success.
Okay. And without getting into a lot of detail, do you use assessment tools? Are there surveys or tools or screens that you use as part of your hiring process?
We utilize agencies, and we're working with local partners in terms of recruitment. But in terms of a tool, we used to use several tools, and what we found that it works sometimes and it doesn't. So it's quite inconsistent. And I would say, from a consistency standpoint, what really added value to our process was the level of interviews together with the technical interview portion.
Okay, good. And that's increased your batting average substantially since you put that process in. How do you, with respect to, like, I understand what you're doing with respect to technical training. How do these people get trained in sales, or are they already pretty, you said they're relatively young? How do they get trained in sales?
they're not just young. There's some of them are young, some of them are younger, and some of them are just new to the country as well. And how they're getting trained, we have an extensive academy within the Spirax.
Yes.
We also have local programs that we enacted, and we try to provide mentorship through our experienced sales force or some retirees that are coming in and helping us out in terms of evolvement of the new sales force. And that continuation and the fact that we have several individuals that have been here for decades and are helping out with new individuals, that showcases several aspects of continuity, as well as, hey, you're talking to an individual who's been around, who knows the customers, who has experienced success, and that really bodes well for a new hire who is trying to learn and get the grip in terms of how they can meaningfully influence their capabilities.
So they're basically being mentored by people that have really a lot of experience.
Yes.
And kind of taken by the hand.
Yep, absolutely. And it really, it's what we don't want to do is we don't want to leave, because when I started just over a decade ago, a lot of the time you would hire an individual, be it in sales or not.
Yes.
And you would say, here's your new laptop, here's your phone, here's the car keys, go.
Go get them, Tiger.
And it's great when it's price related sales, when it's widget sales. But it's really difficult from a solution standpoint. You really need to hold hand in the very beginning. You really need, and I think one of the best aspects is when you are introducing a new individual and to the customer and saying, I'm going to be going on to better things, and I've been either promoted or switched roles or a role change, and here is a new individual who's going to take care of you, Mr. Customer. By the way, I'm still here to support you. That really is a much better message than anything else. And it's something that we always try to strive for, not always possible, but where we can, we definitely strive for that.
Right. So there's a smooth transition from one person to the next.
I think the smooth transition, and I think it bodes or stems, I would say stems would be the right word. It stems from the fact that I truly believe, because I was myself promoted from within several times, and that's what I try to enact within the organization as well. I promote from within. So all of my sales managers have been promoted from within. They are all experienced sales individuals that have been promoted into a sales manager roles. Right. A lot of my other individuals that hold in different organizational roles have been promoted from within. Most of them, actually. Mm-hmm. And that's something that really bodes well and showcases to new hires or to anybody else. Says, hey, I got a future here. Not only that today it works, it also works for me in the future, and I can strive for that expansion of my professionalism, professional story, professional involvement.
They see a real career path.
Yep.
Excellent. And the people that are in sales management, their role, do they also sell? Or is it their main role is to coach, mentor, train, supervise?
Great question, Paul. Great question. I call them player coaches. And right. Sometimes you're more player, depending on the situation. Sometimes you're more coach. In the perfect world, we would have had them only coaching. But in reality, they're doing a bit of both. And it depends on the situation, depends on what transacted within the region that is necessary from their standpoint, whether to be more of a player, less of a coach, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. But there's processes that are in place so that they can be really efficient and can...
Absolutely.
And they can do both efficiently.
And as I mentioned to you, I think the key word for me is the support. One of the key words for success is support. And that is something that I'm continuously working on in terms of improving that support structure around the sales force, so then they feel that they have as much support as possible. And that stems and starts and ends with a good, strong sales management.
Right on. And there's probably some training that they're going through too, right? So, not Absolutely. Just to be promoted, but there's training that they go through to be effective as a coach or as a trainer or as a mentor, etc. That they've been through somehow.
Absolutely. Each and every individual has its own quote unquote journey. That being said, we do have specific training methods or specific training structure that we involve our sales managers.
Right
that
on.
differs from a sales engineers, that differs from internal sales engineers, that differs from internal staff, differs from engineers that are working as an application engineers. So I do believe in training, just like I do believe in promotion from within. The better the person, the better we equip the people that work for the organization, the better the organization becomes.
Fair enough. So when you think about your own leadership, what's sort of the hardest recent adjustment you've had to make to as the company continues to grow?
The biggest aspect, and that's something that I'm trying to finalize my message to start 2026, because we're in the tail end of 2025, so it's a time to both finish strongly as well as reflect upon the last 12 months in terms of the calendar year, and we do run a calendar year. That being said, I think the biggest aspect to me is trust. Trust is the key word, because I trust that when my person or my individual within the organization says they will do something, that they will do it. Just like when I say that I will do it for them, I will meet my end of the bargain. And that is so critical. And how do you build that? Especially when we're running a large geography, when you have a lot of remoteness associated with the organization, where we have people that are completely and utterly on their own islands. And that is something so critical for us, not just from a professional standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, mental health standpoint as well. That trust factor needs to be honed in. And the way I believe in trust is that it happens through transparency. So say what you're actually going to do, mean what you're actually going to do, say it in a as clear as possible way. Obviously, there are certain confidentiality restrictions that are associated with every facet of the organization or roles and whatnot. But that being said, you can still be as transparent as you possibly can. I think that is the default position that I try to occupy. The next thing is over-communicate. And why I say over-communicate, the key word here is over, is because some people, for that individual, over-communication is something that for somebody else is normal. And what I do, I want to have more communication within my team than less. So to me, I really want to hone in on transparency and over-communication. When you do both of them, I do believe that will evolve into a trust factor that will go through the organization and really shift the culture towards that. Without those facets without those keen, critical, foundational pillars, you will not be able to succeed. You will be not impactful in front of the customer. You will not be meeting what you expect to be meeting. And that's something that is really absolutely critical. So for my involvement, from where I'm sitting, that is absolutely non-negotiable. Over communication, transparency that yields trust.
And you're leading from the front. You're the tip of the spear.
If I don't do what I say, and I just do as I say but don't do as I do, I don't have that luxury. So and it's not something that I as a human being also stand for. I'm always growing up, and all throughout my life I try to be as transparent as I possibly can. I don't hide anything. So to me that's my default position as a human being. So it really bodes well in terms of how I function. And I try to do the best for both myself and the organization. I think by me securing my own transparency towards, I think this is the key and critical. I over communicate, I'm being transparent, and I'm expecting that from my team. And if I don't do it, I know it's not going to be extrapolated all across.
Well,
so it needs to start with me, as you said.
It's a high level of accountability.
Correct.
And you're setting the example for it. Yeah. So if you could give one piece of advice to small, medium-sized business owners, leaders, senior management of companies, presidents, CEOs, advice to business owners who maybe just hit a growth ceiling, what would it be? Because that's who the people that are listening to this are.
I would say the biggest aspect is look at your team. Make sure that the team that's around you is at the same level in terms of thought process, but it's not good enough. Thought process is not good enough only. it needs to be, the urgency level has to be on the same level with you. If you have an urgency level that is 50 kilometers an hour, and you have a team that is at 15 kilometers an hour, as good as that team is, and let's assume humane factor, they're all aligned with you, but you will be struggling because you are talking to different individuals in a different pathway. So the urgency, as well as that personnel traits, needs to be aligned within your team, and you are dependent through your team. Your success can be built only with the team surrounding yourself in the right pathway. So to me, it's absolutely your personal traits, your knowledge, your capabilities, but it's also urgency. And that's something that I learned, I think, from my experience in the last several years. If I had to summarize it, it's that something that I did not look at prior is the urgency component. And to me, that is something that is so critical, because a lot of times you look and you say, okay, that individual technically is great. That individual is right there in terms of the attitude. That individual, in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, everything is there. But somehow you cannot get along. Well, why? What is that? It's not, and like, you cannot pinpoint anything. It's the urgency level. And sometimes we don't look at it from an importance standpoint, and it's absolutely critical. So to me, urgency is one of those aspects that really we need to be honing in as leaders, as those who are trying to build success. That is something that to me is absolutely vital.
Great advice. This applies to a lot of people in a lot of different roles inside the company, but it's absolutely critical in sales. So, David, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us your wise counsel and advice for people that are listening in. Very valuable. And I wish you the best of luck. You probably don't need any of it because you're manufacturing your own luck. And but congratulations. That's on the kind of the discussion that we've had here today. This is very, very useful.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Yeah. I did promise my kids that I'm going to give them a shout out. So shout out to Michelle and Danielle. And that is it. Thank you very much for a great conversation.